Aloha GBA fans, what's up? Dragapults is back, and I am happy to bring you the Week 9 predictions for the GBA. I'm also happy to introduce my co-host for this week, Gym Leader Geo.
Good to be here, Cahoots. Looking forward to Week 9. Playoff pictures coming into focus. Next couple of weeks are going to be really critical as we close in on those coveted playoff spots. Plenty to look out for, so here's a first look at this week's matchups in the section we like to call Around the League. Starting off, we got the Borussia Donphan at 5 wins, 3 losses, heading to Calgary to take on the Flamethrowers. Play more Esports, visit the New York Empoleon in a crucial battle for playoff positioning. Both teams 5-3 going into this matchup. Atlanta, another 5-3 team, host the Edmonton Coilers, who are just 1 win away from being 5-3 themselves. Coilers sitting at the mid-table, 4-4 so far this season. Bullet Punch Club continue to show their dominance, 7-1 going into their matchup against the San Francisco Arcaniners, who are 2-6 after last week's win. Wolverhampton Weaviles on the road this week, crossing the channel and up the road to Copenhagen to take on the Sawsbucks at home. And Chicago hosts San Diego. Dragapults face the Snugglers this week as they continue their quest for the coveted first or second seed in the playoffs.
We got a really good matchup for you guys today. We got the New York Empoleons versus Play More Esports. 2 very strong teams filled with powerhouse Pokemon. The Roaring Moon leading the pack for the Play More Esports and Cerulege for the New York Empoleons. I would give the edge to the Play More Esports just a bit here. However, if New York Empoleons are able to get rid of the Roaring Moon, they might just be able to steal this one.
Borussia Donphan, Calgary Flamethrowers. Lars has been on a hot streak, people. 4-game winning streak. This is a team to watch out for. Lars, when he's in this groove, totally a very scary team to face, but Calgary's put up some good competition against some of the top teams in the league. Galadite beat the Empoleon 2-0. He put up a great fight against the Victinis 1-0 and the Dragapults 1-0 losses there. Assistant coach Marcus will be calling the shots this week, and the team's got a 1-1 record when he's in charge. So, always true that the league standings don't tell the whole story, but it's especially true with Calgary this season. Going into this matchup, 3-5 does not paint an accurate picture. You need to prep for this one. Quackleval can go off. Excalibur can go off. Ursaluna and Electrode, they are tough. And the Flamethrowers team building has been solid all season. Really excited to see this one. Let's break down this matchup. What to watch for? Number 1, first off, it's spooky season, and it would not be spooky season if I didn't title this one Trick or Choice. Meaning, Lars is going to need to play around and scout for Trick Room or for choice items, especially Scarves. It's going to be critical in this matchup, I'm telling you. While Calgary has some great speed control on paper, with Hisuian Electrode at 150 and Salazzle at 117, his speed tiers drop off in a really bad way against Lars. How bad, you ask? Do you really want to know? After Salazzle at base speed 117, Calgary's 3rd fastest Mon is Excalibur at speed 87. Between those two Mon, between Calgary's 2nd fastest and 3rd fastest, Lars has 8 Pokemon that outspeed. 8! His 8th fastest Pokemon is faster than Calgary's 3rd fastest. And his 9th is Cresselia, which obviously speed doesn't matter for, but interestingly, Cresselia is one of Lars' best checks to Excalibur, being bulky enough to switch in on it and having Terra Fairy to check it entirely, and without some kind of speed boosting item or setup, Bax can't even run Adamant safely because it needs to fear surprise speed investment from a potential Terra Fairy Cresselia. I'm telling you guys, I look at this matchup and I think 2 things. 1, where's the Scarf? And 2, does he Trick Room? Calgary have the tools for it. Slowking is a great bring for a lot of reasons, Trick Room or not. It's a decent switch into Specs Enamorus, who fails to 2-hit KO even after rocks. It can switch in and smack the hell out of an Iron Shreds. It beats Volcanion 1-on-1. It is a great bring, and it can set up Trick Room. I just think that when you're so outclassed on speed like this, why wouldn't you bring it? It's like playing Hearts and you have the Queen of Spades and every heart in the hand. You got a clear shot at the moon if you want to take it. And if you don't, Lars needs to go back to number 1. Where's the scarf? Someone has got it. I'm telling you, because there's no way in my mind that Calgary goes into this matchup intentionally losing the speed war with only an Electrode for good measure. And speed tiers aside, this matchup actually looks pretty balanced on paper. Lars' biggest threats are, Cresselia, Arnshreds, Enamorus, all of whom keep Excalibur quiet. But, Calgary's got Salazzle and Slowking to help out with that. Marcus has threats like Ursaluna, Quaquaval, Electrode H, but then Lars has got Volcanion and Palmot. So I'm telling you, these teams are very well balanced. It's going to be a good match, and I'm going to be watching out for how they play that speed matchup. I mentioned it before, but in a game this balanced, the thing to watch out for is also going to be, where's the win condition? It won't be obvious until we start seeing some KOs, start seeing some chip damage, and the end game sort of comes into focus. So it's got to be played well. Win conditions are not going to be clear from the get-go. They're going to show themselves over time. But one thing we can all agree on, this is going to be an amazingly well-balanced matchup, and the coaches are going to need to bring it this week to get that win.
Up next, we got the Chicago Dragapults versus the San Diego Snugglers. The Chicago Dragapults are currently holding very strong, with their mascot pick being their kill leader, followed closely by Iron Moth. Two very, very strong Pokemon. But we can't discount the San Diego Snugglers just yet, because when there is a Palafin, there is a way. But if I'm being honest, I think I am going to give the edge to the Chicago Dragapults for this one. But it's definitely going to be a very hard fight.
San Francisco Arcaniners at the Bullet Punch Club this week. George has the tools to keep some of the Bullet Punch Club's league-leading MVPs quiet. That was quite the tongue twister. Meowscarada has been dominant this season, guys. Tons of KOs, very few deaths. But you know what? It might have a harder time than usual switching in safely against George between Chi-Yu and Hawlucha. If George applies some offensive pressure, I see Meowscarada staying very quiet this match. Sure, once it's in, its typing can be whatever it wants to be, but offensive pressure can limit its impact. And as a very offensive team, this would be a good game plan for George, But it doesn't stop there. George also has Amoonguss, who, depending on the set, could also be a good bring against Azumarill and Meowscarada. He's got the Tinkerton, which is going to be an absolute necessity for Dragonite. He's got Rotom to keep Galarian Zapdos quiet. All in all, George has an opportunity here to make a much-needed advantage for himself against the Bullet Punch Club's numerous MVP Pokemon. And if he plays his cards right, that could bode well for him in getting a solid team prep in against this gargantuan matchup. But here's the thing, GBA fans. Uzi is a great player, and he's an even better prepper. There's no way he walks into this fight and says, Meowscarada, Dragonite, Azumarill, Zapdos, these guys are kings of the league, we're gonna be fine. No, he's gonna go in with a game plan. He's gonna know which mon's gonna work with the right sets and the right setup, and he's gonna know which ones are going to struggle. He's gonna see that on paper. There's a lot of good matchups for George, but George's mon have a lot of very exploitable weaknesses too. And the Bullet Punch Club has some lower tier threats that have been putting in a lot of work this season as well. So that's the flip side of this coin. George has some advantages against some of the top tiers, but I think we see some decent lower tier brings this week from Uzi. I'm really liking Clodsire. George is very ground weak. Some immunities, but I don't think he's going to want to swap those in repeatedly on Clodsire's chip and cripple type move pool. I like Pyroar here, lower tier. Pyroar, nothing on George's team resists his dual stab. No one. Uxi's here, you can help pivot and cripple some of George's threats. I really think we see some deep roster talent coming from the Bullet Punch Club this week, and that's one of my keys to watch out for as well. Lastly, I think we see a hazard war going this week, and I think it's in the advantage of Uzi. Clodsire has got the full list. Uxi's there to grab rocks. Meowscarada forces switches because you have to fear that offensive potential. This is an MVP we're looking at here, people. But it's also so easy to grab those free turns from those switches and set up some spikes, set up some T-spikes. And to be honest, I don't see George bringing Defrog. I don't see it happening. And part of the problem with George's team is that some of his extremely threatening Pokemon desperately need specific items for their success. Heavy duty boots, amazing on fire types, but Chi-Yu really needs those specs for wall breaking or Scarf for speed control. I mean, I don't like Nasty Plot in this matchup. Like Nasty Plot, heavy duty boots, I don't like it. So we've got these big threats in here, but they're massively limited by hazards. Tinkerton doesn't care about the hazards so much, but it doesn't match up well against some of those hazard stackers. And it will need to stay healthy if Dragonite joins the fray. So not to mention, it's going to need to do something about this EQ coverage. To me, I think early game, Uzi can take a hazard stack to George and then leverage that into offensive setup against chipped down Mons in the mid game. I think George is going to have a really tough time recovering from that. And if I'm being honest, I think it's a strategy he'll have a hard time stopping because he just doesn't have the hazard support that he would need. George is going to have to bring strong offense. He's going to need to just get his own hazards up maybe, and then just look forward to trying taking a hyper offensive to the matchup. And that's what I'm going to be looking out for this week. How do they handle the hazard game? Does Uzi win this hazard war? I think it's going to mean a lot to see how some of these offensive Mons really shape up. European Showdown coming to you this week as Jack, Just Weavile, and the Wolverhampton Weaviles take on Frosted and the Copenhagen Sawsbucks. This is a big match for the Weaviles. They're going to look to bounce back from a 4-match losing streak. Still very much a possibility to make the postseason, but in order to do it, they're going to need to take down the Sawsbucks. Let's break this one down a little bit. Number one key in this matchup, I'm going to call it the devil you know. I'm going to be looking out for how Jack prepares the Weaviles for Frosted's top threats. She's got some extremely powerful Mons in her draft, but one thing about her squad is that she's got quite a few Mons on the lower end of representation compared to some of the other teams in this league. Hisuian Avalugg has only made it to 1 match. Hisuian Quillfish, only 1 match. Breloom, only been on the squad for half the season, but he hasn't showed up at all. We've seen Talonflame twice. When it comes to the Sawsbucks, she's got some absolute powerhouses that deserve a spot every week, and it makes sense to bring them. Iron Bundle, huge for her. 12 KOs this season. Zoroark, huge for her. 7 KOs this season. Then you got the omnipresent threats like Hydreigon, Landorus T. If you don't prep for those, they can blow giant holes in opposing teams. You know, and I think it's going to be key for the Weaviles to prep. Like, they know these things are coming because they do come. They come a lot. And if you prep for them, I think that puts you in a really good position. But I also see this as an opportunity for the Sawsbucks. It makes sense for Weavile to prep for 5 of those Mons to come every match because that's just good prep. If you think it's going to come, if you predict the opponent's team right, you get a big opportunity there. But that same opportunity for the Sawsbucks to really surprise her opponents. I'm telling you, if Just Weavile is looking for success in this matchup, he's got to prep for the devil you know. It does give Frosted an opportunity to mix things up and do something different, but it might be with Mons she's left comfortable with. I don't know how we play this exactly, but I know I'm going to be looking out for it this weekend. Number 2 key this week for me, Terra choices. I'm looking at you, Iron Bundle, Iron Leaves, and Frostmoth. Here's why I think it's key. Iron Bundle is a huge threat. We know this. It always is. It's a threat every week. But it's also the speed leader this week in this matchup, which makes it doubly threatening. Wolverhampton have a lot of checks based on the typing route that it kind of goes here. Jolteon threatens Iron Bundle if it doesn't Terra Electric. It's exposing itself to Great Tusk and shedding a key defensive advantage for Walking Wake if it chooses to do that as well. But on the flip side, Iron Leaves has Psychic and Fire available to it. I don't see Jack taking Terra to Iron Leaves this week. I think he needs the grass typing for Landorus, Iron Bundle, Slowbro, Magnezone, which means it's probably going to be Frostmoth or bust. He just doesn't have a Terra type. Now, we haven't seen a ton of Frostmoth this season, but when we have, it's been a really big threat. So I think, looking at the Terras this matchup is going to be really important to kind of see how the game goes. Are you choosing to lose that pretty critical water typing that does have a good advantage and good matchup against the Weaviles and shed that from Iron Bundle Do you go deep into the water typing and try and handle some of those water resistances? Or do you try and protect Iron Bundle, take the extra electric type and Terra it that way? And what's going on with Frostmoth? I think Terra typing is going to be really important in this matchup. In fact, so important that this entire Pokemon gets key number 3 for me, and that's Frostmoth. I like Frostmoth a lot in this matchup, guys. I think it's going to be really important to determine which way this game goes. Used well, I think it could be really effective. Used poorly, I think it could potentially cost a very crucial spot on this roster that's going to be needed to check some of these other threats that the Sawsbucks have. Only one Mon, guys. Let's look at this offensively. Only one Mon on the Sawsbucks' entire lineup resists Frostmoth's dual stab, and that's Magnezone. And there ends that Terra question. Frostmoth has got Terra Ground available to it. And if we look at that coverage, Ice, Ground, and Bug coverage, not only is Frostmoth completely unresisted, it takes it a step further. It has super effective coverage for every Mon on the Sawsbucks roster except for Iron Bundle, Talonflame, and Zoroark. And 2 of those are the top threats I was just saying before that are in key number 1 for this matchup that the Weaviles simply must have answers for. So if Jack can bring answers to Iron Bundle and Zoroark, this Frostmoth completely goes to town in this matchup. No Mon in this matchup is going to have perfect resist against it. It's going to hit neutral at worst against everything, and it's got super effective coverage for everything else. I think Talonflame is a must-bring here. It is the only thing that could have even a chance of potentially standing up to this terror once it gets behind a Quiver Dance. This Mon is an absolute nightmare for the Bucks, and I think we're going to need to see what Frosted has in check to try and prep for this Mon.
And last but not least, we got the Atlanta Victinis versus the Edmonton Coilers. Another fight of powerhouses where we have the Iron Valiant going head-to-head, toe-to-toe with the Urshifood Rapid Strike, and the Battle of the Regenerators where we got Tornti and Slowking going head-to-head. Very solid teams on both sides, and I think it could be anyone's game. Although if the Atlanta Victinis is able to take care of the Iron Valiant early, I think they are able to clutch this one out.
From all of us here at the GBA, we hope you're looking forward to these upcoming matchups. Be sure to check out all of these fantastic coaches. Links in the description down below. On behalf of myself, Cahoots, and the entire GBA staff, thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Shoots!